on, maestro! Hit it!
The manhwa begins by depicting an old, eerie wall alongside dilapidated wooden furniture. Bugs occasionally fly in through the vents from outside. As one bug flies by, a boy expresses his envy towards it. He catches the bug between his hands, examines its remains on his palm, and licks it, only to stop and comment on its bitterness. He mentions that he has spent his entire life in this place and has always been trapped here. His light flickers, and since his name is never mentioned, we'll call him Boy. Boy is writing a self-introduction for when he eventually leaves the basement. Boy states that a self-introduction typically starts with a name, but he doesn't know his because no one has ever called him by it. He glances at a photo, remarking that he should have won, as it shows him with his mother and father. He was separated from his mother shortly after birth, and can tell from her bright smile in the picture that she must have loved him dearly. His father interrupts his thoughts, announcing that his mother is gone. Boy turns, asking what he means. His father explains that she died shortly after his birth by jumping off a bridge, and he begins to laugh, which infuriates Boy. Boy declares that although this man is his father, he is also the person who locked him up to prevent his escape. The basement has multiple doors, each with its own lock, and his father keeps all the keys. The father says he will never let Boy outside and asks if he hasn't explained why his mother jumped off the bridge. Boy looks frightened. The father grabs a cookie and shoves it toward Boy's face, saying that his mother was afraid of the world she lived in. He uses the cookie as a metaphor for the world, then breaks it, claiming she knew an apocalypse was coming. Boy remains uneasy. The father asserts that he isn't letting Boy outside because he loves him and can't bear to see his son suffer. Boy trembles with anger, calling it a lie and a ridiculous excuse, and demands that his father stop speaking ill of his mother. He asks if his father thinks he would believe him after being trapped there. The father replies that it's up to Boy whether he believes him or not. He seizes Boy's notebook, stating his self-introduction will never see daylight, and burns it. Boy tries to stop him, but the father ignores him, leaving only ashes. Boy questions how such a person could be his father. The father says Boy shouldn't have said that and insists he is doing everything for him, urging him to follow as it is that time of day. They walk down the hallway, and Boy notes that this happens at the same time every day. Even from the vents leading outside, he hears nothing but his and his father's sounds. They are alone in this vast basement. The father begins to write on a chalkboard, and Boy comments that it's always the same routine. His father lectures him, followed by training. One thing helps him endure this monotonous life. He smiles at a book, saying he can read books from the library for entertainment. He prefers those describing the outside world. He imagines what it looks like outside, wonders about the warmth of sunlight, and dreams of running through grass and trees. He longs to see other people and maybe make friends, but above all, he needs to find his mother. His father kicks him in the face and snatches the book from his hands, scolding him for reading it. He reminds him that only certain books are allowed, and this one is about the outside world. Laughing, the father mocks his son's fascination with the surface, reiterating that he is forbidden from ever leaving the basement. He warns that when the apocalypse hits, there will be chaos and destruction, leaving only ashes behind. The father insists that the basement is the only place for survival. The boy, frustrated, declares he's tired of these lies about the impending apocalypse. He resents being confined and physically abused and vows to escape, though he knows he must wait for the right moment. He plans to seize the keys and flee as soon as his guard drops. In the bunker's training area, the boy is seen struggling with push-ups, sweat pouring down his face. His father criticizes him for tiring out after just 10 push-ups, despite the heavy weights on his back. When the boy collapses under the weight, his father approaches, extending a hand. Confused by this seemingly caring gesture, the boy questions his father's intentions. His father roughly pulls him up and then kicks his legs out from under him, sending him crashing into a mirror. He warns the boy never to trust anyone who reaches out to help, especially in an apocalypse, emphasizing the importance of combat skills for survival. The father notices the boy's lack of response and calls him weak for collapsing. He decides to end the training session for the day and starts to leave. The boy sees this as an opportunity. He quickly grabs a shard of glass and, with his father still unaware, prepares to attack. He races toward his father, believing he can kill him and escape. However, as the boy closes in, his father suddenly stops. The father had never truly let his guard down. He notices the boy's shadow and, with a twisted smile, turns to face the oncoming attack. The boy is astonished to see his father moving like a creature, but proceeds with his plan and tries to stab him. The father dodges the attack, much to the boy's amazement. The father then pivots and twists his body, delivering a roundhouse kick. Realizing he's in trouble, the boy hears the sound of the kick before falling unconscious. A bit later, the sound of dripping water wakes him up. He sits up to see water from the sink dripping into a bucket as his father remarks that he is finally awake. The father comments that the attack was a good attempt, but reminds him that he has always said that using anything other than bare hands makes the training worthless. Grinning, he adds that the penalty for using a weapon is double the training. The father locks the cell door and leaves, advising the boy to rest, as tomorrow will be challenging. He laughs as the lights dim and walks down the hallway. The boy realizes something his father doesn't know. When the lights turn off, all electricity in the room ceases momentarily and all noise fades out. If he focuses during that moment, he can hear things that were previously undetectable. Even though they are far away, he can faintly hear the sounds of wheels turning, birds chirping, and a bustling city. From this, he discovers two things. While his father claims it's bedtime, it's actually daytime above ground. Additionally, the earth is at peace. His father keeps insisting that the end is near, which he now sees as an excuse to keep him imprisoned. So he plans to escape and find his mother. Whenever he asks about her, he's told she is dead, but now that he knows his father lies, he believes she is alive. He pulls his blanket up, determined to find her. The scene then shifts to his father walking down the hallway, laughing when his phone rings. He stops and sees that the call is from someone named River. His expression becomes serious, and he asks what it is, stating that he told them to contact him only in an emergency. While the boy sleeps, the father listens to River for several minutes. When River finally stops talking, the father responds, "All right," and let the boy live. He then collapses to the floor, sobbing from what he has heard. Sometime later, the boy hears his father laughing. When he opens his eyes, he notices that his father's mood is unusually ominous. Sensing that something is wrong, the boy asks what's happening. He then realizes he cannot move and sees that he is tied up. He shouts, demanding to know what's going on and asking to be untied. But his father continues laughing, ignoring his pleas. Frustrated, the boy grits his teeth and vows to free himself. He begins to flex, causing the ropes to slowly break. Distracted, the boy looks up to see his father glaring at him. In a chilling voice, his father commands him to stop. The boy, breaking out in a cold sweat, recalls that training was supposed to be twice as hard and asks if his father remembers. His father responds that the plans have changed. From now on, he will be forced to sit in the chair every day. Panicking, the boy questions what his father means, reminding him that he promised to train him for survival. His father coldly states that the training is now over. The boy wonders what has caused this sudden change in his father. Desperate, he thinks about how he won't be able to see his mother if he doesn't escape. He redoubles his efforts to break free. His father, noticing this, asks what he's doing. The boy struggles with all his strength, managing to snap a few ropes. His father, seeing this, is initially speechless, but then starts to laugh uncontrollably, a laugh that seems demonic. He throws a punch with a whip-like crack, sending the boy and the chair into the air, causing them to crash down. His father then lifts the chair back up and sternly reminds him that he was told not to move, laughing before returning to his normal demeanor. Determined, the boy tries to break free again. This time, his father kicks him and laughs while he lies on the floor. This cycle repeats multiple times, and the boy cannot understand what drives him to keep resisting instead of pretending to comply and waiting for a better chance. Despite the risk to his life, he refuses to give up. His hatred for his father, who has imprisoned and tormented him, grows with each passing minute. The boy feels his hand move and looks down to see that he has broken free from the ropes. A rush of excitement surges through him, a feeling he has never experienced before. He starts to imagine the look on his father's face if he were to defeat him. Smiling, he turns to face his father, but instead he finds his father has already closed the distance between them. Expecting anger or perhaps worry from his father, the boy is taken aback when he sees something completely unexpected. His father is crying, and it appears he's been holding back these tears for a long time. The boy is shocked, realizing for the first time that behind his father's harsh exterior lies a deeply saddened man. He wonders why his father is looking at him that way and doesn't even try to dodge the attack. As he is hit, he begins to lose consciousness, and through his fading vision, he sees his father approaching. In a trembling voice, his father expresses hope that the boy can understand. He begins to remember his father's advice. His father always emphasized that among all the survival tips, the most crucial rule is to never leave the basement. It is the safest place, equipped with thousands of defense mechanisms and enough resources to last for 126 years. Leaving such a well-prepared place is a sure path to danger. The end would come without warning, so staying in the basement was imperative. As he wakes up and stands, he notices his father is not there. He recalls, this has never happened before. The only time he would disappear was when he went to sleep. He also remembers his father's strange behavior the day before. Sitting against the wall, he reflects on their repetitive lifestyle and the current situation, unable to comprehend what was happening, but sensing that something significant was imminent. When the gears stop turning, he realizes his suspicion was right. As the door opens, he sees that all the doors in the hallway are now open, with no one in sight. This is an opportunity he can't ignore. He dashes down the hallway thinking, "Father would have stopped me by now if he were here, so he must not be." He runs to the end of the hallway, reaches the ladder, and looks up, exclaiming, "I've found it!" He begins to climb, hoping for daylight. Reaching the top, he removes the cover and hears the sounds of cars. Emerging from the hole, he squints against the brightness and is stunned to see a normal cityscape with people going about their lives peacefully. His heart races. He has finally escaped. A man approaches, asking why he is in the middle of the road. The boy, happy to see another person, realizes he must remain cautious. His father might notice his absence soon. He decides to run and put as much distance as possible between them. As he navigates the city, he reflects, "I've dreamed of this moment my whole life, escaping the basement to be truly free. Until now, it seemed impossible." However, it still feels strange that the door opened so easily. He stops to ponder why, considering a system malfunction but doubting it, as his father wouldn't make such mistakes. He wonders if his father intended for the door to open. Shaking his head, he rejects the idea, thinking, no, he was the one who made the rule of never leaving the basement. The boy surveys his surroundings, observing people living their normal lives, students, children playing joyfully, and smiles everywhere. He reflects on how these could have been his own experiences if his father hadn't deceived him. There's no apocalypse, only tranquility. The boy remarks, "I knew all those fears about the end were meaningless." As everyone enjoys themselves, their laughter is drowned out by the sound of wings flapping, and a single thought echoes in the boy's mind. The end comes without warning. Birds take to the sky, and people look up in disbelief. A balloon briefly obscures the boy's view, but as it drifts away, he sees something in the sky beginning to obscure the sun. People start to wonder what is happening. From the strange planet-like object, a whirlwind forms. A closer inspection reveals multiple whirlwinds forming simultaneously, reaching towards Earth like tentacles. Panic sets in as it draws nearer. People speculate about its nature, some suggesting it might be the moon. The boy questions their intelligence, pointing out the bright light emanating from it, which he identifies as a monster's eyes glaring at them. However, it isn't just one monster. The tentacles are actually thousands of monsters charging together. As they approach, the boy recalls his father's advice to never leave unless the basement's location is compromised. For some reason, the monsters head straight into the basement before spreading to other parts of the earth, rendering the first rule obsolete. They charge through the basement, packed tightly, then begin to spread out on the surface. Some people, paralyzed by shock, watch as one of them is seized by a monster's tentacles. The man screams but doesn't attempt to escape. The monster's mouth is ready to devour him. No one runs. They all watch as the man is eaten, with only his head thrown aside. The crowd waits for it to roll over before fear and panic take hold. They begin to scream and run, questioning what is happening. Some fall, while a boy obliviously listens to music as others run past him. A giant figure throws rocks at the fleeing people. Another monster, covered in spikes, effortlessly slices people in half. Various types of monsters appear, easily ending human lives. A man screams and the boy watches. People call for the police. The boy hears a terrifying sound and recalls his father saying that in the apocalypse, the world will be filled with blood and screams, leaving only ashes. What was once a peaceful street has become a scene of horror. The boy sees a massive creature crushing skyscrapers. If the monster parade hadn't made it clear, the behemoth's destruction confirms that their normal lives are over. The city's ruins fill with even more descending monsters. The boy realizes that his father has been right all along. He begins to doubt his initial disbelief and wonders if his mother might indeed be dead. As he stands there paralyzed with fear, a wave of monsters consumes the people behind him. Suddenly, a hand grabs him and pulls him away. It's his father. When he asks how his father found him, his father simply urges him to keep running without stopping. The monsters draw nearer, and the boy witnesses a man behind them being attacked. He and his father turn a corner only to face more monsters. His father leaps over a railing and tells the boy to follow closely. Together, they run against the crowd toward a distant bridge. The monsters, varying in shape and size, devour the civilians around them, some killing indiscriminately. The boy continues running, passing by people who stand frozen in fear. As they ascend the bridge, he sees that no one is left behind. All have been caught by the monsters. He warns his father that the monsters are gaining on them, but his father insists they keep running. It's their only way out of the city. The bridge spans a deep canyon, and the monster wave is now pursuing them up the bridge. Suddenly, a monster grabs the boy's foot, causing intense pain. He cries out that if they don't remove it, he will die. His father uses a car door to sever the monster's arm, making it fall off the bridge. The boy clutches his injured ankle as his father assesses the damage. The bridge shakes under the weight of the approaching monsters. The boy tries to stand, determined to keep running, but he realizes the gap between them and the monsters is closing. He collapses, looking up to see his father watching him. He tells his father to go ahead and save himself. As his father begins to move, the boy feels a sense of resignation, thinking his father is abandoning him as usual. However, his father reaches out a hand, urging him to get up. The boy, bewildered, asks why his father isn't leaving him behind since he can't run far. His father insists he has a plan, surprising the boy, who doubts him. Seeing the trust in his father's eyes, the boy falls silent, remembers his tears, and takes his father's hand. His father pulls him along, urging him to run. As they run, the boy turns to ask about the plan, but feels something in his hand. His father shouts that there's no time to explain. They must escape the bridge immediately. The boy acknowledges this and keeps running. The closer he gets to the other side, the more the bridge shakes. He looks back and sees the bridge supports breaking under the monster's weight. The cables snap, causing parts of the bridge and some monsters, possibly including his father, to plummet into the canyon below. The boy stands at the bridge's edge, calling out for his father, uncertain about what happened to him or the bridge. He remembers his father mentioning he had a plan and wonders if this was what he intended. He questions why his father would subject him to lifelong torment only to save him now. His legs tremble and he collapses, stating he has survived. But now what? What is the purpose of his survival? All his dreams of a life above ground have been extinguished. There is no peace here, no beauty, and his most cherished goal of meeting his mother remains an unattainable dream. He begins to weep, questioning why his father went to such lengths to save him. He wonders what he is supposed to do next, as this seems like a hell worse than the prison he grew up in. He recalls his father helping him and giving him a note. He looks at his hand and slowly opens it to see what is written. He stops crying after reading the note and stares at the remains of the bridge. Suddenly, a monster begins to crawl out of the cliff. Terrified, the boy tries to run but feels intense pain in his leg. He grabs onto the railing and realizes the monster is getting closer until they both fall off the bridge. The boy rolls on the ground and the monster also tumbles down. The boy attempts to stand, but his stamina is depleted. The monster starts to rise, and he realizes he cannot escape. He starts to believe he will die, but then a spark of hope reignites within him. He begins to cry while looking at the note and wonders why his father only now reveals that his mother is alive. As the monster stands, he feels a surge of adrenaline and stands up, determined to live. He vows not to give up and to find his mother. But first, he must deal with the monster before him. He recalls a lesson from his father about how humans lack the knowledge to survive independently. The monster charges at him while he remembers his father saying that even if they survive, it's only a matter of time before they die. As the monster attacks, he asks his father how he is supposed to handle it, believing that if his father's words are true, he will be powerless and must accept his death. As the monster's fist gets closer to his face, time seems to slow down. He recalls everything his father taught him about countering attacks and dodges the punch, jumping behind the monster. The momentum from the punch causes the monster to stop itself from sliding off the cliff. The boy is surprised he managed to avoid it and sees the monster preparing for another attack. He remembers his father saying that he is different from others. The key difference is that he knows exactly what he must do to survive, as that's all he has been taught. The boy stops trembling, calms down, and lowers himself into a fighting stance, ready to confront the monster. The monster charges, and he is prepared to fight. The monster throws another punch. The boy slides under the attack, stopping himself by grabbing a spike he noticed earlier. He pulls the spike out of the ground and charges at the monster. As the monster turns to grab him, the boy dodges the attack. With the spike firmly in his grip, he turns and thrusts it straight through the monster's head, killing it. The scene shifts to a different part of the city, now completely overrun by monsters, with only rubble remaining. Underground, some survivors are conversing. They mention that the police should have acted by now, as it has been 4 days. They feel fortunate to be hidden here, but their food supplies are dwindling. A girl looks at her silent friend. Essie remarks that if they stay hopeful, things might change. A guy tells her she's making everyone uncomfortable. She responds that she's not speaking loudly, and he clarifies that he means her friend is probably already dead. He then tells her to forget it and walks away, mentioning he might be losing his mind. A schoolgirl approaches him, saying she can't find any food. He replies that they must find food if they want to remain there. She says there's still one place left to check, which she missed before, so she'll look there again and not give up. The man smiles and thanks her, saying everyone is tired from guarding against the monsters, and she is the only one willing to help so much. He calls her a great kid, but she shakes her head, denying it. He says they need to keep hoping and try to get everyone out of there. She is speechless and walks over to two people talking. She asks if they found any food. They glance at each other and pull out a sandwich, saying they found it earlier. The girl tears the bag open, and one of the others tells her to wait, but they start eating. She asks what they are doing, reminding them they promised to share the food. The other girl says that only those boring people made that decision. They never agreed. She points out that just yesterday they ate from the shared portion. The man says he doesn't remember that. The girl grits her teeth, threatening to report them. The guy stands up and dares her to try, saying they won't stand by and watch. She replies it's pointless because they can't catch her. If there's one thing she's good at, it's running away. The guy starts to approach her, but a scream is heard, and they all turn, feeling fear. The woman says it came from far away, so they'll probably be okay. He remarks that his fear was unwarranted, and then notices the schoolgirl trembling on the floor. Observing her shaking, he mocks her, pointing out how confident she was just moments ago, but is now too scared to move. She spots some food that was left behind and quickly departs. She returns to the man she met earlier, who asks if she checked the area he mentioned. She replies affirmatively. He inquires about the outcome, and though she has food in her pocket, her growling stomach betrays her, and she lies, saying she found nothing. He responds that he isn't surprised and stresses that their survival is what matters, but their relief is short-lived as a monster bursts into the room. The schoolgirl is knocked down but quickly gets back up, terrified as she sees the monster approaching the man. The man crawls towards her, stretching out his hand and pleading for help, but she runs away, apologizing. He calls after her, but she reminds him that she had warned him she wasn't a good person. As the man is attacked, the couple from earlier starts running as well. They see the schoolgirl running straight toward another monster. The woman suggests using the schoolgirl as bait. The schoolgirl keeps running and the woman calls her an idiot. As the monster swings at her, she evades the attack with a dive and a handstand roll, surprising everyone with her agility. The man remembers her claim of being good at escaping, realizing she wasn't bluffing. While they are eventually eaten, the schoolgirl manages to find cover, gasping for breath as she falls to the floor, hoping the monsters will leave her alone. She then notices Boy sitting nearby. Mistaking him for a corpse, she screams and pushes him over, but he mumbles, revealing that he is still alive. However, a monster is right in front of them. She fears it heard her scream. As it begins to crawl toward them, she trembles with fear, but grabs Boy by the collar, dragging him away to hide them both. If you've made it this far,
Please step forward and press the button. Now, open your eyes, step forward, and push the button. Yes! You see? What a thrill! What a rush! That was you!
now I want you to do something else for me. Please press the subscribe button.
Come on, give it a try. Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe
Commenting "Let him cook" will
lend you an air of charisma as well?
It begins to depart, and she exclaims, "Thank God it's gone," sighing with relief and realizing she is still alive. Then she notices that Boy is now awake. She screams again, causing him to jump back and demand who she is and what she was doing to him. She is bewildered, but he only hears his father's advice not to trust anyone. She explains that she hid him from a monster, but he retorts that his father was probably right and he should avoid humans. He questions how he can trust her, but his stomach growls and he collapses to the floor, admitting he hasn't eaten in 5 days and is at his limit. He has been conserving his energy, but now he has encountered a human. She tells him she has no food, which confuses him since he didn't ask. She explains that he looked hungry and she wanted to clarify. As food falls from her pocket, she begins to sweat nervously. He asks about it, but she tries to think of a cover-up, though he genuinely has no idea what it is. Growing hungrier, he asks if it's food. She quickly denies it. He says he must have been mistaken, but she keeps trying to hide the truth and insults him for not recognizing food, thinking she might escape. He calls her a liar, doubting she thought he would believe a human. She is confused. He insists that she is wrong to think he'd trust her since all humans lie. She realizes she underestimated his instincts. Boy, judging by her reaction, determines it is food. He says he needs it and will take it by force if necessary. She reluctantly gives him half, insisting it's exactly half and she can't give more. He wonders why she is sharing since it puts her at a disadvantage. She demands he repay her 4 times what he received and not forget it. He agrees and begins to eat his portion. Then he prepares to leave and she asks where he is going. He replies that now that he's eaten, he needs to move. She questions where he could possibly go in this situation. She tells him that this is her neighborhood and she knows the area well, so there's nowhere to go because of the monsters. She bumps into him and asks why he stopped. He asks if she really knows the area well, and she confirms she grew up there. He then asks if she knows where the subway is. After sneaking around for a bit, she wonders how she ended up in this situation and regrets sharing her bread. Curious, she asks why he wants to go to the subway. He explains it's safe, stocked with survival goods, and allows travel without being seen by monsters. Most importantly, the subway makes it hard for monsters to detect humans. She finds him strange, noting how he speaks with knowledge but didn't recognize bread earlier. She says they are here but seems confused, certain it was the correct place. He questions if she is deceiving him. She clarifies that this isn't the subway but that she is looking for the entrance. She tells him to wait while she searches, but gets startled by an old man who tells her to be quiet. He reveals he came because he heard something and didn't expect to find humans. Boy asks who he is, and the old man scolds him for rudeness, suggesting introductions can come later. He tells them to follow him, and the girl asks where they are going. He responds that they were looking for it, right? He leads them through rubble and down an escalator, revealing the subway they were searching for. The girl is surprised to see so many people there. The old man remarks that he can't forget the moment, thinking monsters would appear so randomly. He knew there was no place to hide, but he stumbled upon this location while fleeing. It was purely by chance that he discovered it. While scavenging for medicine on the surface, he overheard a conversation. The boy surveys the area, noting his initial plan to create a subway base, but there are too many people here. He observes a variety of individuals, some drowning in despair, others revealing their darker sides, and one person he can't quite figure out. The more people there are, the more potential threats he must manage. Yet he senses that none of them pose a true danger to him. He has an instinct for identifying threats, similar to his ability to detect the monsters on the surface. Like his father, he can sense auras, but no one here emits a threatening presence. Perhaps it will be safe to stay since none of them seem capable of harming him, even if they turn hostile. His thoughts are interrupted by an old man announcing it's time for introductions. The man introduces himself as Hwang Beom, a doctor. Beom explains that he was searching for medicine, which is how he encountered them. Unable to find the medicine, he asks for their names. The boy remains silent, so the girl introduces herself as Haru. Beom compliments her name and, noticing her school uniform, guesses she attends virtual middle school. She confirms this and asks if he knows the school. Beom responds that his hospital was right across from it near the mall. She doesn't recall a hospital being there. Beom then turns to the boy, noting his tattered clothes, and asks for his name. The boy replies that he doesn't have one. Beom is surprised, thinking it's a joke, and laughs, saying the boy can tell him next time. Suddenly, a man rushes in, announcing that the situation has worsened. An injured man, leaning against a wall, expresses relief at seeing Beom. Beom assesses the injury, noting that while they had stopped the bleeding earlier, the condition is deteriorating rapidly. He declares that immediate surgery is necessary to prevent a fatal infection and prepares his surgical tools. As he disinfects the wound, the boy remarks that he's read about doctors, professionals who treat people for a fee. In the post-apocalyptic world, without money, he asks Beom what he gets in return for his services. Beom, surprised, replies that he doesn't need anything in return. Everyone is taken aback by his response. Beom explains that it's a doctor's duty to help the injured, reassuring them that he rarely fails in surgery. The injured man, moved to tears, thanks Beom and hugs him. The boy, puzzled, questions why Beom helps without expecting anything in return, wondering if humans are foolish or if they naturally behave this way. Beom cautions the man not to reopen his wounds. The man expresses his gratitude but notices the word veterinarian on Beom's jacket. Beom tells the man that the surgery will hurt, but it's necessary. The man begins to panic, insisting he doesn't want the surgery. Beom stresses that without it, he will die. The man questions how a veterinarian can perform surgery on humans. Beom confidently states that since humans are animals, he is capable of performing the surgery. The man, still reluctant, protests, but Beom urges him to calm down to prevent his condition from worsening. Beom asks for anesthetics, and a girl responds that they don't have any. Beom picks up a brick, telling the man it's time for the night-night juice. The boy concludes that he was wrong. Humans are indeed dangerous. The boy wanders off to a quiet place, thinking he made the right decision by not watching the surgery. He wonders what to do next, realizing all he has left is a childhood photo with a note on the back saying she is alive, but he has no idea how to find her. Looking at the picture, he feels uneasy because there are strange, alien-like flowers in the background. Even when he was in the basement, he found it odd and looked through flower books for information, but found nothing about these flowers. If these flowers only grow in a specific area, he might be able to figure out where the photo was taken. To find out, he needs to find someone who can identify the flower. It's his only clue, so he must be careful not to lose it and ask everyone he meets about it. A bug flies by his face and he swats it away, then tastes it like before, remarking that it is very bitter again. In another room, a girl turns to her boss and says she has gathered everyone. He says it's time to start and instructs them to bring in any others, using force if necessary. The civilians are confused about why they have been gathered. One person asks the man why they are being handled roughly without any explanation, but the man ignores him. A scarred man glares at the questioner, instilling fear in him. The scarred man claims he can read the true thoughts of people by looking into their eyes. He sees fear in the man's eyes, hidden behind a tough exterior. The normal guy yells at the scarred man to stay away. The scarred man punches him in the stomach, saying the truth always comes out. The guy is thrown back, and everyone is terrified as the scarred man picks him up, saying this is what he wanted to see, true fear. The man begs him to stop, and a subordinate informs the scarred man that some people are missing. He asks who, and she replies that the old man, a boy, a girl, and the injured person are not there. The scarred man, frustrated, says he'll handle it himself as he wants to see their eyes when he finds them. The subordinate asks what to do with the man on the floor. The scarred man says to throw him out, but the man pleads to do whatever they ask. The scarred man starts heading toward where the boy is. We see the boy lying on the floor, confused about when he fell asleep. He remarks that he hasn't rested well for days because he had to protect himself from monsters. However, he is now bewildered, unsure of where he is. He presses his foot down but cannot sense the ground, wondering if it might be swallowing him, though he quickly dismisses the idea. Sweat drips from his chin onto the floor, and he fears he might have already been consumed by something. Suddenly, something starts to wrap around his arms and reaches for his neck. He struggles to escape, but it traps him, blocking any way out. He screams and wakes up, realizing it was just a dream that felt incredibly real. In front of him stands a scarred man and his group. The boy asks who they are. The scarred man gives him 2 minutes to reach the center of the station, threatening to expel him if he fails. One of the henchmen warns him to hurry, or it could be risky. The boy gets up, and the scarred man expresses curiosity about who was hiding, but now sees it as pointless. The boy asks if they plan to expel him and how they intend to do it. A henchman, referred to as Mole, starts to bark at him, but the scarred man stops him, calling this the fun way. He then looks into the boy's eyes, wanting to see his true emotions. The scarred man feels something overwhelming and is left speechless. Mole, noticing the scarred man's reaction, says the boy is in trouble and should have left when given the chance. The boy confidently states that 2 seconds is enough to take them down. Mole laughs, calling him funny and asking if those are his final words. He pulls out a knife, but the scarred man puts a hand on Mole's shoulder, surprising him. The boy realizes his photo is missing, and Mole taunts him with it, saying he didn't expect to find anything valuable, but found the photo instead. The boy, angered, threatens to kill Mole if there's a scratch on the photo. Mole starts to sweat nervously as the scarred man grabs the photo, threatening to rip it if the boy comes closer. Mole begins to beat the boy, questioning his confidence. The boy berates himself for letting his guard down while asleep, acknowledging that humans are more dangerous than monsters. Mole asks the scarred man what to do next, suggesting they expel the boy. The scarred man declines, and Mole is confused. The scarred man explains that when he looked into the boy's eyes, he saw something different from the rest. The depths of his soul were so deep that he couldn't see anything. He instructs Mole to keep a close watch on him and to hold on to the old photograph. Whenever they are monitoring him, he must always have the photo in hand. Mole questions if such measures are necessary, but the scarred man firmly states it as an order. Mole admits he was frightened when the boy almost attacked them, but that no longer matters. With the photo in his possession, the boy will be immobilized. Haru enters the room, looking surprised. She asks what's happening. The scarred man remarks that she saved him the effort of finding her. Haru begins to panic, asking why they are seeking her. He directs her to report to the center of the station. As Mole and the others prepare to leave, he laughs and says he'll see the boy again and manage the photo. He exits, and Haru notices the boy sitting there. She approaches him, asking if he's all right. He slaps her hand away from his face. Gritting her teeth, she says she was trying to help him up. He retorts that he doesn't need her help and tells her to move, calling her human. She insists her name isn't human and reminds him that she has told him her name before. As he walks past her, he questions the need to remember such a detail. Bomb senses the tension between them and asks Haru if something happened. Angrily, she replies, no, regretting her attempt to speak to someone uninterested. The boy explains he would never hold a human's hand, as his father warned him not to trust anyone who extends their hand to him. Humans are his enemies. He notices Mole, thinking it would be easier to retrieve the photo by force. Even if it were torn, he could reassemble it, but he doesn't want to damage it. The photo is the only item he has from the basement, so he will wait for Mole to release it. The scarred man announces to the group that they have 2 choices: follow him or don't. If they choose to follow, they won't have to worry about being expelled like the man behind him, who tried to cause chaos in the subway and is now being removed. Those who stand with him won't be treated as rebels disrupting the peace. He won't force anyone, but it's clear that his word is final here. The crowd, visibly scared, looks around to see others' decisions and gradually sides with the scarred man. Bomb reflects that in a lawless world, the strong rule the weak. It's not surprising things have turned out this way. While the scarred man doesn't explicitly demand obedience, it's implied what will happen to dissenters. Following the scarred man seems logical for survival. Nervously sweating, Bomb straightens his tie, acknowledging he has already lived a long life, and that occasional unpredictability isn't bad. If he aligns with the scarred man, he might not be able to help patients in need, so he decides to stay independent, even if alone. Haru, however, does not join and sighs. Bomb, surprised, asks if she isn't planning to join the scarred man. She refuses, and he tries to persuade her, calling her foolish. She laughs and points out that she's not the only one making a stand. He turns to see the boy, and many others also not siding with the scarred man. The scene shifts to a girl with Bomb who questions why she is being excluded. She didn't want to remain there, but now they are being coerced into joining another group and might face torture. Freckles reassures her, saying it won't be that bad. Freckles explains that instead of torture, they might just be expelled or left to starve. Glasses becomes frightened and starts to scream, declaring they are doomed. A little girl accidentally bumps into Bomb. Her presumed father apologizes, saying he should have held on to her properly. Bomb laughs, noting she's at a tricky age, but advises her to listen to her father. The girl begins to speak in a strange language, and the man says he can't hear her well. She yells that he is not her father and headbutts Bomb. She claims her real father and mother are searching for her. The man agrees, saying they've been crossing paths, and he noticed she was alone, so he's acting as her guardian until they find her parents. Meanwhile, some men are talking and notice a boy entering the room. He informs them that the boss has forbidden his entry and he will face punishment regardless of his age. Ignoring the warning, the boy searches for the person who stole his photo. Elsewhere, people are instructed to take only the rationed amount of food and warned they will be checked later. Glasses asks why they are receiving less food compared to others. The man responds that it's the boss's rule, and since they are confined to the room doing nothing, they don't need much food. The smell of food wafts toward a guy, waking him up like in a cartoon. He asks if it's time to eat. Then another guy inquires about the boss's left-hand man, who we will call Mohawk. Known for his nickname Chicken Comb, Mohawk is notorious for not following orders, doing his own thing, and killing people with a smile. They confirm his dangerous reputation and advise not to mess with him. The little girl from earlier bumps into Mohawk, spilling her food. Looking up, she sees Mohawk, who tells her it's dangerous to run around and now his clothes are dirty. He instructs her to follow him and they discuss the next victim, wondering why a boy is approaching them. Mohawk calls out and asks for the girl's rations. They explain that rations are limited to one per person. Mohawk offers his own ration to the girl, making her stop crying. Observers speculate that Mohawk might be using this as a form of torture and will bother her while she eats. The girl's guardian quickly tells her to get behind him and asks Mohawk what she did wrong. Mohawk angrily demands to know what he did wrong. The guardian decides to leave with the girl, but she glances back at Mohawk, who appears confused, then smiles. The scene shifts to a group of people guarding a door. Freckles is talking to Haru, noting that there seems to be increased surveillance. Boy wonders if he should just go find his photo and glances at Haru, who looks away, still upset because he was rude to her and smacked her hand away. Freckles notices her odd behavior. The narrative jumps to everyone asleep. Freckles sits up and looks around, noticing Boy sitting in the corner. She approaches him and reaches out to touch him, but starts to feel pain as he grabs her arm. She's surprised to find him awake. Boy asks what she's doing, accusing her of planning to attack him in his sleep. She wonders why he is so strong, but tells him that it hurts and she only wanted to talk. Boy, confused, asks what she means by talk. Freckles replies that it sounds like he's never had a conversation before. Boy stares blankly and asks why it matters if he has. Freckles is puzzled, but he lets go of her hand and tells her to get to the point. She asks why he is always away from the group and if he's a shy person. He gets irritated, saying she is talking nonsense and he has no reason to be close to the enemy. Freckles asks what he means. He explains that he sees every human as an enemy and has no reason to be close to people who might betray him. Freckles says she doesn't intend to hurt him, but he doesn't believe her, thinking she might be lying. She accepts this but asks him to reconcile with Haru. Boy says he never fought with Haru. Freckles asks if he can get along with her. Boy replies that it's a different matter. To him, Haru is no different from anyone else in the room. Freckles mentions that Haru cries quietly every night, suggesting she has something heartbreaking she can't share, and implies that everyone there might feel the same. She adds that if Boy, being the same age as Haru, got along with her, it would be better. Boy dismisses this as shameless, saying being sad is for weak people and that it's better to focus on survival. Freckles asks if he's never felt sad after losing someone important. He recalls his father saving him on the bridge and says no, and that he won't experience it in the future because he doesn't have anyone close to him. Freckles comments that not feeling sad because he has no one special makes it sound like he's incredibly lonely and will remain so. but assures him she would be sad if he dies. Boy is taken aback and says that makes him feel bad since he won't die and doesn't care if she dies. She laughs, calling it cold, then starts to cough. Bomb seems to be waking up. Freckles remarks that she might have talked too much and won't bother him anymore. She wishes him sweet dreams, but he says nothing and just thinks she is a strange person. Meanwhile, Glasses is pretending to sleep, finding the situation exhausting. The boy thinks that it's been about 4 days since he arrived here. Initially, he came just to find a place to rest. However, because someone held his family picture and the note hostage, he couldn't do anything to find his mom. Mole and his friends frequently come to beat him up for fun, knowing he won't retaliate. Mole claims this is punishment for the boy leaving the room without permission last time. The boy responds by suggesting that if that's the case, Mole should punish himself and give back the family picture. Mole is shocked that the boy isn't afraid of him and is instead looking at the picture with disinterest. This enrages Mole, making him think the boy hasn't been punished enough. The boy recalls his dad saying that humans are inherently weak. Observing the behavior of these people, he believes he finally understands what his dad meant. After the beating, he gets up and reflects that not all humans are like Mole and his friends because Freckles and Biom seem concerned about him. Biom notes that fortunately, the boy isn't badly hurt, but suggests disinfecting his wounds just in case. The boy interrupts, saying it's unnecessary because he's endured worse. As he sits down, Freckles brings him food and water, smiling as she tells him it's breakfast. She mentions she didn't know when he'd be back, so she got it for him. The boy is surprised and almost thanks her, but decides to stay silent. Freckles, curious, asks what he was about to say, but he replies with nothing. Suddenly, Freckles starts coughing and looks sick and tired. The boy recalls her saying the previous night that she didn't plan on hurting him and would be sad if he died, making him wonder if he might be able to trust her a little. Suddenly, she collapses, dropping the food and water, and the boy is taken aback by the sight. Biom noticed her and immediately assisted, advising her to stay calm and mentioning that her symptoms looked severe, indicating she needed medication. However, the issue was that he had to go to the surface to get the medicine, as he didn't have it with him. She reassured him that it wasn't necessary and there was no need for him to go to the surface on her behalf. Nonetheless, he insisted she stop talking and pointed out that without the medicine, her condition would deteriorate. At that moment, a boy arrived and, looking confused, asked how her condition would worsen without the medicine. Biom glanced at the boy, puzzled. But before he could respond, Mole and his crew appeared, summoning the doctor by stating that the boss was calling for him. Mole then noticed the boy staring at him and sighed inwardly, thinking he didn't understand why the boss insisted he show this picture to the kid when he could easily handle him with his knife without needing the picture. Mole informed Biom that the boss had ordered him to treat the people their side had injured, urging him to hurry. Biom replied that he couldn't comply at that moment. Mole questioned if Biom was defying the boss's orders. Nervously, Biom clarified that wasn't his intention. He would attend to the other patients after treating Freckles, as she was in dire need. Suddenly, Freckles stood up, claiming she was fine and could go to the surface to get the medicine herself if they told her where it was. Biom objected, saying she wouldn't survive on the surface in her current state and insisted on accompanying her. Mole watched and remarked that if this was the case, Biom should have said so earlier. Then, without warning, he stabbed Freckles in the stomach, saying he could have helped if that were the case. Everyone in the room was stunned, eyes wide with disbelief at what had just occurred. Even the normally emotionless boy was shocked as Mole removed the knife from her body and she collapsed to the floor, bleeding. Everyone hurried toward her body as blood kept spilling, eventually reaching the boy's legs. The boy stood in disbelief, feeling her life ebbing away little by little. With a worried expression, he wondered why humans died so easily. He just watched as her life faded slowly. Suddenly, she shocked him by touching his foot with her finger. She then said, Why so serious? Didn't you say you wouldn't care if I died?" He was speechless as her hand fell to the floor, and she was now dead. Everyone around looked sad and worried, while Mole cursed because his hand got dirty with her blood. Beom was furious, gritting his teeth and demanding how Mole could stay so indifferent after killing someone. He continued, saying that monsters weren't just on the surface, but here too. Mole laughed, telling him he was being too harsh. He argued that killing her was no different from saving him. He said if things had stayed as they were, he would have followed her to the surface. He couldn't lose their doctor just to save one dying human. He told Beom he should be grateful instead. Mole explained that dying this way was more peaceful than being eaten by monsters. Suddenly, his gaze shifted to the boy who stood motionless. Mole grinned and asked the boy if he was finally scared, mocking him for acting tough before. However, the boy looked back with eyes full of anger and envy, not fear. He noticed the man holding a knife instead of the picture that would help him. With a cold, deadly tone, the boy asked, "You don't have the picture?" Mole glanced behind him, where the picture lay on the floor, and admitted he must have dropped it when he grabbed the knife earlier. He then looked back at the boy, grinning, and asked what he was going to do about it. Mole was confident, but the boy prepared to dash towards him. With a quick smile, Mole taunted, "Are you going to jump me or something?" In an instant, the moment Mole blinked, the boy appeared in front of him with incredible speed, his face so close to Mole's that it seemed they might kiss. Then, answering Mole's earlier question, the boy simply said, "Yeah." The boy delivered a powerful punch to Mole's face, sending him flying. The boy was so fast that Mole's companions couldn't even react or see him. As Mole was propelled through the air from the punch, the boy ran swiftly and delivered another devastating blow. The blow was so powerful that it made Mole do a 360 spin mid-air to then end up crashing into a wall. Not giving Mole any time to react, the boy grabbed Mole's knife. With impressive speed and to everyone's shock, the boy placed the knife against Mole's neck, puncturing the skin slightly. Seeing Mole's distorted face and half-unconscious expression, the boy grew angry because Mole was too weak. When he first attacked, Mole didn't even react. The boy was so fast that Mole had no idea what hit him. The boy cursed, thinking that if he had known Mole was this weak, he would have just taken the photo from him, which would have prevented this situation. Now, filled with bloodlust and hearing his father's words urging him to kill this man and to show no mercy to his defenseless enemies, the boy was ready to kill Mole. However, Beom intervened, telling the boy to stop. Beom warned him that killing Mole would be irreversible. Confused and angry, the boy asked why he shouldn't kill Mole, questioning if Beom was concerned about the man. Beom clarified that his concern was for the boy's heart. He urged the boy to consider if killing Mole was truly necessary. Reflecting on Beom's words, the boy remembered asking his father if there was a real reason to kill humans. He had told his father that if he beat them to the brink of death, they would likely refrain from attacking him again. His father had laughed and said that with such a weak mindset, the boy wouldn't survive. His father then questioned if the boy was afraid of killing humans. The boy, pointing at his father, declared he would never become like him. He vowed to survive the apocalypse in his own way, not resorting to killing everyone he disliked. After these reflections, the boy dropped the knife, pleasing Beom, who felt he had made the right decision. The boy then told Beom it wasn't because of his words, but because he felt that killing Mole would make him no different from Mole himself. There was no real reason to kill him, he thought. Why should it matter to him whether Freckles lived or died? Even if she survived, she wouldn't be any help in finding his mother. As he pondered this, one of Mole's friends suddenly charged at him from behind, ready to strike with a bat. The friend thought it was the perfect moment to kill the boy since he didn't have the knife. But as he swung the bat, he was shocked to find that he hit Mole in the face instead. The boy had dodged the attack and positioned Mole in the line of fire. Reacting quickly, the boy turned and punched the attacker in the face, causing him to stumble backward until he stopped in front of another friend. The other guy saw this and had an idea. He picked up the boy's family picture. The boy asked what he was doing, and the man asked if the picture was precious to him. With a cold gaze and expression, the boy answered, "So what?" Terrified, the man carefully cleaned the photo with a tissue and handed it back to the boy, saying, "Nothing, just be careful with it." Despite trying to appear calm, he was clearly scared. As the boy took back his picture, everyone watched him in amazement. A few minutes later, they covered Freckles' body with a blanket. Then, the old man mentioned that he hadn't seen the little girl and Haru. The girl's guardian explained that they had gone to the bathroom earlier, and it was probably a relief they didn't witness the horrible scene. Suddenly, a pig pointed at the boy and asked how he managed to defeat the attackers so easily and why he hadn't done anything until now. The boy explained that they had held something of his hostage. The man asked if he meant the photo, questioning how important it was to him. The boy responded loudly and seriously, saying it was very important to him, which scared the pig into silence. The boy then said that he had something to ask them. He showed them the photo and asked if they knew about the flowers. One person said that nothing came to mind, and another said he had never seen a flower that looked like that before. Glasses asked him where the picture was taken, to which he replied that he was asking because he didn't know. Manglasses commented that it wouldn't be so difficult to find out if they had internet access, but it seemed impossible just by looking at the picture at the moment. Beom then asked him why he wanted to know the location of the picture, and the boy told him that he obviously wanted to go there. Taken aback, Beom said that while he saw how the boy fought just now, he was aware that the surface was swarming with monsters. Even if the boy found out the location, it would be hard to survive out there, he told him. The boy confidently responded that he could survive, shocking everyone. Inwardly, the boy thought that he didn't expect to find people who would recognize this at a glance anyway. Suddenly, the scarred man entered the room saying, "So, this is what it's come to." While looking at the boy holding the picture, he said that he had told Mole to hold on to that picture well, but Mole couldn't even follow such a simple order. Lifting his sleeves, the scarred man said that it didn't matter, and now that it had come to this, he guessed he would use a more direct method. In other words, fight. Meanwhile, outside, or rather on the surface, there weren't many monsters in that particular area. However, suddenly one appeared and started digging a path that led down into the subway where everyone was gathered. Someone asked if they had enough firewood. After getting a proper answer, he said they could now cook a proper meal. He used his lighter to set the wood on fire and then asked the other person to blow on it to make the fire bigger. The other person refused, saying he was busy and told him to do it himself. Nearby, Haru was waiting by the restrooms for a little girl to come out. When the girl came out, she angrily complained that everyone there was weird and that no one flushed the toilet. Haru nervously explained that the flushing part was broken and couldn't be helped. The person who brought them all there mentioned that it was late and he needed to send them back. Noticing Haru's expression, he told her not to look at him that way, saying he was doing this to survive too. The one cooking pointed at them and told his friend to look, thinking they were fighting. Suddenly, something fell into the cooking pot. He asked the man next to him if he put something in it. His friend told him to stop talking nonsense and start stirring. But then, many more things began falling into the pot until it tipped over, shocking the cook. Looking up, he wondered why rocks were falling from the sky. He saw a hole being dug by monsters who then burst out, ready to eat him. The scene shifted back to the boy and the scarred man. The man looked back and saw Mole and another man unconscious on the floor. He thought to himself that his judgment about this boy was correct. In his past experiences, there were monstrous beings who deviated from the norm. Now, there were actual monsters roaming around. Suddenly, one of the men warned him to be careful, saying the kid was stronger than he looked. The scarred man elbowed the one who warned him, saying he didn't need to be told he was incompetent. He said what he needed was the boy. As he confidently approached the boy, he commented on his rebellious eyes, thinking to himself that he might finally see the true form within the depths of the boy. As he tried to look into the boy, he saw only darkness. Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock. He realized he had been mistaken. It wasn't him looking at the boy, it was the boy looking at him. He felt like a small pebble being looked down upon by a predator. Overwhelmed with terror, he snapped back to reality and fell on his backside, panting in fear in front of his subordinates. This was no ordinary boy. He had nearly been consumed by him. Everyone around him was shocked, their eyes wide and mouths agape. One scarred subordinate wondered why the boss was acting like this in front of the kid. Suddenly, they heard a loud scream. A man came running, huffing and puffing, asking for help. He was frantic, saying he couldn't see. The others asked about the blood on his body and where it came from, but the man said he didn't know. He had just been taking a nap and woke up with a headache. When he touched his head, he felt something strange. The others saw it too and wondered if it was a monster. The man was in a crisis, trying to figure out what was on his head since it wouldn't come off. Suddenly, he stopped talking and did a breakdance move, then froze in place. Everyone looked at him with worry, terror, confusion, and disgust. Suddenly, the monster on his head extended tentacles out of his eyes and attacked a man, then went for the boss. The boss managed to grab it and punched it hard enough to send it crashing back. He took an axe from a guy nearby, and as the monster was about to attack him again, he swung the axe, sending it crashing to the floor. He continued to chop it into many pieces. Everyone looked in awe, and since the monster stopped moving, they thought it was dead and started cheering. However, the boss inwardly wondered where the monster had come from. The people began to say they thought they were going to die and thanked the boss for saving them. At that moment, only the boss and the boy were quick enough to notice another monster crashing into the room. As the dust settled and it slowly got up, everyone was speechless. A tall, humanoid, muscular monster had just entered their room. Perhaps it was because they had spent so much time in the subway that everyone had forgotten about the monsters outside, thinking they couldn't be found here. They were trying to forget the terrible memories from the first day of the apocalypse and the horrors they faced. But it only took a second of seeing the creature for everyone to start panicking and running for their lives. Suddenly, the boss shouted for them to stop and fight. He asked how long they were going to keep running and if they planned to repeat everything all over again. Pointing at the monster, he said there was only one, and it was different this time. They could beat it if they fought together. Perhaps it was because they had seen the boss easily kill a monster that had been the embodiment of their horror. Or maybe it was the boss's words that inspired them. They started to believe they could do it, saying they had nowhere else to go if they ran away. Now, they were ready to fight the monster on their own. As they faced it, they thought to themselves that monsters were no longer the object of their fears. For the first time since the monsters appeared, they felt hope. But this hope was shattered. Just as they were about to ask the boss for orders, they saw him bleeding. They were shocked, their eyes wide open, as they saw the boss floating, pierced through the mouth and back by the monster they thought he had killed earlier. They were taken aback. If the boss had killed it, why was it coming back to life? This meant they could never truly defeat them. As if that despair wasn't enough, many other monsters rushed into the room, starting a rampage. They began killing people, sending heads and limbs flying while others were eaten alive. A humanoid, muscular monster grabbed a girl, tangled her in its bony mouth area, and slowly cracked her bones while eating her alive. As blood started splattering everywhere like rain, the natural human reaction was pure panic and undefined terror. That's what these people felt as they ran mindlessly for their lives. Amidst the chaos and screams, boys stood there watching while Piggy said they were wrong because it was only a matter of time before they too were targeted. Suddenly, the face of a little girl appeared in Four Eyes' mind. He was worried, but before he could run to find her, Beom grabbed him, asking what he was thinking. Four Eyes told him to let go because his child was out there and he had to find her. Beom then told him to wait, saying that if the monsters had already reached the entrance, the child might already be dead. Four Eyes fell to his knees, hands on his head, muttering that it was just like last time. Suddenly, Boy stepped up and headed towards the monsters, shocking everyone. Beom chased after him, asking what he was doing and telling him to stop. But Boy kept walking through the scared people, readying himself in a fighting stance to face the monsters. Meanwhile, Haru's group managed to find a place to hide just in time. The little girl was crying, but Haru shushed her, warning that if she continued, they would get caught. As the girl stopped and stayed silent, Haru thought to herself that she was sorry but couldn't afford to worry about someone else right now. She had hidden here amidst the chaos, but knew she would be caught and killed if discovered. She was about to leave on her own, but the trembling girl grabbed her sleeve. Haru wanted to refuse but had no choice but to help her. She told the girl to stay close to her. The man with them looked at the dead bodies around and asked Haru what she planned to do. Haru said they had to run away. However, the man asked where they could go since there was nowhere left to run. Haru replied that it didn't matter where, as long as they could live. The man argued that there were monsters on the surface and now even in their last safe place. Still, she believed they could survive. With determination, she said that she couldn't just sit and wait for death. She would survive no matter what. The man then commented on her determined gaze, saying he could see she had a reason to survive. Suddenly, he noticed her scared expression. Confused, he turned around and saw a menacing monster. He was terrified, but when he saw Haru and the little girl trembling, he gathered his courage and told them to get a hold of themselves and run. He said he had no more reason to live, but they did. However, when he turned to look at them, they were already running for their lives. The man smiled and remarked on how fast she was, then jokingly said she should have waited to listen to his speech at least. But then the monster started attacking, and his screams echoed through the building. Meanwhile, a man with an axe was trying to stab the muscular monster, but it didn't seem to hurt it. A girl was also stabbing it continuously, but she noticed her efforts had no effect. She fell to the floor, saying she couldn't do it anymore, and awaited her death. Suddenly, a boy started walking past her. She wondered, "What's with him?" as she watched him. Other people were being pierced by the tentacles of the monster, which had taken over the boss's body. When she saw the boy's fighting stance, she thought he was going to fight the monster and feared he was just asking to be killed, since even the boss couldn't defeat it. As the monster launched numerous tentacles at the boy, he easily dodged them and grabbed 2 of them while the others hit the ground. Another tentacle was about to pierce the back of his neck, but the boy jumped high in the air, dodging it. He landed gracefully and tied up the tentacles he was holding, then threw them behind him. When the monster attacked him again, it couldn't reach him because all his movements were calculated, and he had tied up all the tentacles. He then got close and ripped the monster away from the boss's body. The girl was shocked that he stopped the monster, but she said nothing had changed because the boss had stopped it before, and it was still alive. The monster screamed, catching the attention of the big one and the others, who turned their gaze toward the boy. As one of the monsters dashed toward the boy, he tossed away the tentacled one and then knee-kicked the monster on the chin. He then dashed toward the big one, jumped over it, and came from behind. He saw the axe still embedded in its body, grabbed it, but the monster felt it and threw blood at him. The boy regained his composure and picked up the axe again. Suddenly, the monster elbowed the boy, shocking the girl and Beom, who were now worried. But as the dust settled, the boy appeared holding the axe, seemingly unscathed. Beom was taken aback that he was still alive, while the girl couldn't believe he survived the blow. The others also looked at him in disbelief. The monster's, known for its overwhelming strength and constantly regenerating body, was incredibly dangerous to fight. However, as everyone stood in awe, the boy stood up and faced the monster alone. Though he looked slightly hurt from the earlier blow, he remembered his father's words. "There is no being in this world that doesn't die. It can be animals, humans, or even plants. For every being, there must be a source from which its life began." His father told him to go after that source of life, saying that if it was him, he would know where their lives begin and how to destroy it, their seed of life and existence. The monster rushed at him, but the boy, agile like a cat, dodged its attacks. With a sharp swing of his axe, he pierced through the monster's body, reaching the seed. The moment he destroyed it, the monster started to be sucked into the seed. Eventually, its entire body was absorbed into the bright light until it became a small ball lying on the floor. Everyone watching the fight was stunned. Their eyes and mouths were agape as they witnessed a kid slay a monster right before them. Meanwhile, Haru and the little girl were running away. the little girl glanced back and saw another monster approaching them. She tried to warn Haru, but Haru was focused on running as fast as she could. As they entered a hallway, Haru's attention shifted to a large monster about to devour someone. Instinctively, she released the little girl and leapt down. When her eyes met the monster's face again, she was petrified. Her eyes were filled with so much fear that she seemed half-conscious. In that terrified state, she kept running until she reached the old man and the others, then hid behind them. She stopped running, panting heavily, while Beom was shocked to see her alive. He observed that she didn't appear to be injured, which was a relief. However, with a worried look, Four Eyes asked, "Wait a minute." His expression turned devastated as he inquired about the child who was with her, asking where the child was. Haru was too shocked and traumatized to respond. Suddenly, cries were heard, catching everyone's attention. It was a child crying, wondering where Haru had gone. Four Eyes was ready to rush in and rescue her, but he stopped abruptly when he noticed a monster approaching the child from behind. The monster was so close that it seemed the child's fate was sealed. Despite this, he tried to run faster to save her, while Haru was still frozen with fear and worry. A loud scream echoed as Mohawk appeared from behind the monster and punched it aside, shocking everyone. He successfully got the child out of danger, then faced the monster again. He tried to scare it by threatening to rip its eyes out, and to his surprise, the monster left. He wondered if he had managed to scare it off, but Beom approached and told him that this was not the case. Beom asked Mohawk if he hadn't noticed while coming this way that the reason they were all safe was because that boy had been fighting and killing those terrifying monsters alone. Huffing and puffing, the boy said this was the second one he had killed so far. Suddenly, another monster attacked him with a punch, but he managed to dodge it. He continued, explaining that 2 more monsters had appeared in the meantime. If there had only been a few monsters attacking him, the plan would have been to deal with all of them and restore the place safely. However, he was now up against 3 monsters. These creatures didn't seem to have any blind spots. If his attack was even slightly off the mark, it could be fatal, and more monsters might appear. If he considered his current stamina, his chances of survival would significantly decrease if he prolonged the fight. At that moment, a thought crossed his mind. Should I just run away? Running away would be easy, and he could probably find a place to hide relatively quickly. But if he left, the humans in the room likely wouldn't survive for long. He questioned himself, wondering why he should care if they died since humans were his enemy. Suddenly, Freckles' face came to mind, distracting him and causing him to let his guard down. This gave a monster an opening to swiftly dash towards him and pierce his back with its nails, sending him rolling on the floor. Exhausted and injured, he was unsure what to do as the monster approached. Suddenly, Mohawk stood in front of him and said he understood the situation. With a confident smile, he asked the boy to tell him how he could help, since it seemed the boy knew how to kill these creatures.